Welcome back to another episode of Matt Talks Sports. We've got a fun episode today. Two guests for the first time ever. We've got Michael and Gerardo here to talk about some big storylines from Week 2 in the NFL. And as always, if you guys are enjoying the show, remember to leave a review and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And follow me on Twitter at Matt Talks Sports. All right, let's get into some football. Michael, how's it going?
It's going good, man. What's up?
And Gerardo, first time on the football podcast. How are you?
First time on here. I feel way out of my element, but let's get this show on the road.
Let's do it. Gerardo, how much football did you watch this week?
I watched a bunch of highlights and one entire game because my Falcons were on in primetime, and so I was able to watch them. And that's a lot more than I watched in week 1.
Yeah, I know you're not typically the biggest football fan, but I think that'll be fun. It'll give us a different element for the show today. You said you did watch which one? The Falcons,
the Falcons,
Eagles?
Yeah, my team. That was a fun game. It was great to beat them, and also I very much enjoyed how much they beat them up as well. I hate all things Philly, so that was nice seeing us pound those guys all over the field.
It was a pretty physical game.
Kind of scary at the end, though, wasn't it?
It should have been, but the whole time I had this weird feeling they were going to pull it off, and that's of course what happened.
It was that the fourth quarter was pretty suspenseful though. Wentz was really up and down. That was an odd one for him. It seemed like there were certain parts of the game where he looked like he was back to his like MVP style form, and then other times where he was just way off.
Yeah, well, didn't help that all of his weapons went down throughout the game.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. And that levitating knee throw to Aguilar in the fourth quarter.
That throw, man. You're trying to trigger me early on today.
I am. That was fun.
That was a good-looking throw.
It was.
It was
as
insane.
he was getting tackled. Yeah, so that was a good one. I think that's one of the big topics as well that I wanted to talk about, and the Falcons apply perfectly to it, is that we just have no idea what any of these teams are yet. From week 1 to week 2, teams just looked complete opposite. The Falcons looked god-awful in week 1.
Right.
Way better in week 2. The Browns were another team. They looked really bad week 1, much better on Monday Night Football, but we don't really know how much to put on the Jets for that.
And then there's the Patriots, and they're just looking great week to week.
Yeah.
Against some, sure, bad teams, but they're executing at a very high level.
Yeah, they definitely are. I think, it's tough to know how much to put into any of this, but I think we can all safely say the Patriots are very good. Michael, what do you feel was your biggest takeaway from week 2? Given that we just said we don't know anything about any of these teams yet.
That if AB doesn't get suspended, him and Tom are going to find a connection and they're going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Ooh.
End of story.
Going to win the Super Bowl.
I hate it. There's so much I hate about that. It sucked coming out of my mouth.
You mean your takeaway wasn't that Pat Mahomes threw for 4 touchdowns in one quarter this week?
Yeah, holy cow. The Raiders did such a good job on him in 3 of the 4 quarters, but then what the hell happened in the second?
Conley went out, and then they took advantage of that. Farrell went out, and both those plays, the defense kind of looked a little staggered. And those were 2 of them, and then 2, he threw 2 of those Patty Mahomes throws where they were just phenomenal. Even they covered well. So, 2 were his throws, 2 were breakdowns, complete breakdowns.
Yeah. Yeah, the first quarter was looking so good. And I know we joked about it, or I joked about it on the last one, saying they were just going to get rolled. And then after the first quarter, the Raiders were up 10-0, and I was like, uh-oh.
I wasn't saying uh-oh.
Yeah.
It wasn't until that second quarter was I saying uh-oh.
Yeah, and then they got rolled in the second quarter.
What was it, 20-something games they had a touchdown in the first quarter?
Yeah.
Until that game?
That's the only thing that gives me pause about just throwing the season and giving it to the Patriots right away is that the Chiefs are super dangerous, man. Yeah, they got shut out for the rest of that game, but that second quarter, they were just flat out stupid.
That's one of the other things, too. Slow starts for a lot of these big offenses. There's been a lot of games this year where first quarter, the teams are, kind of not really popping off like we see them, and then they hit their gear and they just run away with it. Cowboys did the same thing this week. I think they didn't score until like 5 minutes left in the first half and then just rolled.
Well, Washington's come out both games looking prepared with the game plan. And I'd hate to say it, but looking at both Grudens, they plan for the first 2 drives for very well, and once they get off script, it looks a little shaky for both of them. So
That is a really good point. Yeah, because Washington last week, too, like you said, the first half, they were really, really strong, and then it just kind of crumbled. So maybe you're right. Maybe that's a family trait where they're really good game planners, but not good at in-game adjustments. Speaking of the Cowboys, though, back to what I was saying, I think the Cowboys are also in that group with the Chiefs and Patriots. You're shaking your head, Michael. You don't think so?
the Patriots with AB, I just
Sure. Obviously, if I'm ranking them, I'd put the Patriots first. But I think what I've seen from the Cowboys so far, they're such a complete team. That defense made such a big step last year and got to be in a top 10 defense. Now the Kellen Moore offense is so much better than what they had last year. The efficiency is so much better. They've got way more movement. It's just a modern offense, whereas before they were just pound it with Zeke. Now the way they're passing and drawing things up, I think they're a complete team. I really, really love the Cowboys right now. I don't know. I've got them as, with the other things we're going to get into with the injury to Brees and whatnot, I think I would rank the Cowboys first in the NFC right now, even ahead of the Rams.
I think in the preseason previews that you guys did, I think you had them at 12-4, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I liked them coming into the year. The thing I was concerned about was Zeke. Because when we did that episode, we were hedging everything because we just had no idea.
Yeah, if they had Zeke, they were fighting for number one with Philly. If no Zeke, they were fighting for third.
And the thing that I was kind of concerned about was the Kellen Moore switch, because he took over the offense this year, and I wasn't sure if that would work out or if it would be better or worse or the same. And it looks way better.
Yeah.
Way better. They made huge strides on offense, and Dak looks like an MVP candidate in that offense. So I'm loving it. I'm loving what I'm seeing from the Cowboys.
Yeah, I stretch that same amount of uncertainty to a much lesser extent, of course. But, I mean, the Patriots don't need Antonio Brown to go out and win another Super Bowl. But I think if you leave Brown in that mix for the entire season, yeah, they're probably going to run away with that and run the gauntlet in the playoffs. If Brown goes down, though, to a suspension, the Patriots still have enough to win, obviously. But at that point, you know, other teams obviously have much more of a realistic chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, then their number one receiver becomes Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman.
Like it matters in the Belichick offense. But
Yeah, I think we had even mentioned that on the other podcast, but that's not really a Patriots thing to even have a number one receiver. They had it during the Moss years, and that was it. The whole rest of the time, even when they have a guy who's better than the others, they don't really target him like a number one. They just hit whoever's open. That's just kind of the way their system runs. They don't ever over-depend on one guy.
Interesting what you're talking about with the Cowboys, and I think maybe, it'd probably be a good time to get into the injuries that happened. But with Brees going down, maybe they take over that other top spot from the Saints.
That, I think, was one of the two biggest storylines of the week. I would say the injuries and officiating. So we'll start with the injuries. So Drew Brees in that game, like you mentioned, hit his hand on Aaron Donald's hand on a pass rush, damaged something in his thumb. I think it was a ligament in his thumb. And so now he's getting surgery. He's going to be out for, right now they're estimating like 6 weeks.
6 weeks is what I read.
Yeah.
You'll have Teddy Bridgewater starting, a quarterback that I think is solid for 6 weeks. Probably can hold it down for him.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who knows me knows how I feel about Teddy Bridgewater. I absolutely love that guy. I wanted him to be the Vikings quarterback for 10, 15 years, but the injury kind of took him away and took him out of the league as a whole. People weren't really sure if he was ever going to start again. So it's cool to see that he did recover from the injury and is going to get a chance. I don't know. He didn't look excellent in his limited time on Sunday. Did you watch any of the game? You said you didn't see that one?
I didn't. And here's where I'm going to come in and say, here's where my casual fanness comes in.
Right.
And you guys can sell me on that, because Brees is all world, man, when it comes to being a quarterback.
Absolutely.
And I just, Teddy Bridgewater, I don't know very much about the guy, and here's where you can fill in and inform me, but there's no way he fills the shoes of someone like Drew Brees.
Not at all.
Sure, but they have some A-plus talent on that offense.
But
of course.
We even mentioned in our preview about the Saints, we said if Brees were to go down, Teddy could at least fill in. He's not what Drew Brees is whatsoever. There's going to be a step down. That's guaranteed. There's going to be a step down on the offense. The problem is, or the question is it enough of a step down that just throttles their whole team? Or is it enough to get by?
Yeah, he won't have any miraculous 37-second drives. He's more of a methodical drive maker.
Yeah.
They're going to have to hit some, crossing routes with Michael Thomas. some check downs and all that.
Yeah,
but I think they'll be okay
the knock
in that
on
division especially.
Yeah. The knock on Teddy is that he often gets too conservative at times and he'll play too much to the safe throws. So that, I think, would limit them as not going to be that Brees potential where they're scoring 30-plus every single game. But he also brings a lot of other things. He's a more athletic and quicker guy, moves around in the pocket really nice. So he's going to be fine, I think. It's going to be a step down, but I think he'll be fine, and I think he can definitely keep them in the playoff hunt. I've seen some people just saying, like, oh, the season's over for New Orleans, and I don't feel that way at all.
Especially with Cam reactivating his foot. It's interesting to see what happens with that.
So that's another one that we're just getting more news on today. It looks like he's going to be out this week and maybe for even longer than that. We still don't really have a lot of news, but I even saw a tweet. Somebody said they saw him in a boot. So, if that's the case, I don't know.
Yeah, I was so high on him to start the season. I thought he was healed.
Same here.
Hopefully he bounces back.
And we talked about it on the Saturday pod. He has looked ugly in the first two games. He's been clearly not himself. So that's worrisome. And that back to the Saints point with the Panthers being in that same mess. The Bucs have looked okay, but I don't think anybody's seriously considering them as a threat to the Saints.
No, if the Falcons can get on a roll.
I was going to say, you know what
That's
that
the thing.
means. I'm sitting over here licking my chops.
Right. So that opens the door for the Falcons, but which version of the Falcons are we going to get? Because week one, you would not be able to convince me they're a playoff team watching that week one team.
I'm going to give the boring answer and say they're somewhere in the middle because they're not as bad as they were week one.
There's just no way to know.
But I don't expect them to put out the type of team that's going to beat a team the caliber of the Eagles every single week. So
yeah. Exactly.
But
we're all guessing.
But it could be the year with all these injuries where like 9-7 is enough to win that division.
It totally could be. And we didn't expect that because I think we all thought the Saints were going to be up there around 11 wins, and the Panthers, me and Michael at least, thought the Panthers were going to be around 10 or 11 also.
Right.
So it's not what we expected, but it's what we've got.
I pulled up the next 6 games for the Saints just because that's the estimate right now that Brees would be out, and it's a pretty mixed bag. It's tough the next 2 weeks because they've got the Seahawks and the Cowboys.
Those are probably losses.
And then in that same stretch within the 6 weeks they play the Bears, but then they also have the Bucks, the Jags, and the Cardinals. Yeah. So those are 3. 3 and 3 is not inconceivable for them.
If he does miss 6 games and they go 3-3 in those 6, I think they're fine.
Yeah.
Like the season's not over whatsoever at that point.
They're at 4-4 potentially when he comes
Atlanta's
back and ready to make a
got
run.
a loss, so I mean it's not likely Atlanta would go 6-0 over their next 6, even if they do play well. So I mean, at worst, what do you like, a game or 2 back? And that's if Atlanta plays really well, which they may not. So.
Right.
I think New Orleans is pretty safe, assuming it's only 6 games, because that's even an assumption. We don't know for sure that it's 6.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That one, I'm not too concerned for the Saints. I think they're going to be okay. Moving on to the next one, though, the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger out for the year.
Fitzpatrick in.
Minka Fitzpatrick. They traded. Okay, let's get into all that. So. They lose Ben Roethlisberger, and I tweeted about this. They lose their quarterback for the year and then give up their first-round pick for a DB, Minka Fitzpatrick, who I think is good. He's very good. He was a first-round draft pick last year. But I don't think you give up your first-round pick in a year where you just lost your franchise quarterback, because it's incredibly likely they have a very bad year.
Who's the quarterback now for the Steelers?
Mason Rudolph.
A quarterback that I think will play better than we're expecting.
Yeah, no. I think they drafted him to potentially be the Ben Roethlisberger replacement, because at the time when they drafted him, that was when Roethlisberger was mulling retirement. So I think they definitely value him. I think he was taken in the 3rd round. I think they value him as a guy who could potentially be their next quarterback, but we don't know that he's any good.
It's real early to be talking draft, but even if they have a high pick, if they weren't picking a quarterback, there's no other big names, no weapons or corners coming out next year that.
Yeah, we don't know that yet. I mean, so much changes over the course of a year in terms of draft prospects.
But this is a guy we've seen in the league ball out. So
I
on a
agree.
rookie
I
deal.
just think you could potentially be giving up a top 10, maybe even top 5 draft pick if this season craters without Ben.
I think probably 10. I think.
But either
there'll
way,
be
a top 10 pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick is a lot. That's a high price.
He went 11, and they're not paying the signing bonus. This is a real cheap deal. Sure,
That's a good
they
point.
paid
That's a good
in
point.
Draft,
Getting a
but cap-wise,
first round.
real cheap.
Yeah, getting a first round pick on a cheap money deal like that is a good bargain. So you're right about that. But they've also already lost 2 years. Well, I guess they're going to get him this year. So they lost 1 year off of that deal. But there's pros and cons. I just would be very, very worried about it. Because what if it does go that way and they're giving up the 3rd or 4th pick in the draft? That is a very, very high price and an overpay.
I think slight.
Was this Fitzpatrick deal done after Big Ben got
Yes,
hurt?
it was done.
It was done hours after. It was done the same day.
I don't see it
sounds
as an
bad.
all-in move. I don't. I see it as a future move.
But they gave up their first rounder?
Sure,
Yeah.
but he's a first-round
Yikes.
pick 11 talent.
Just from last year.
Yeah,
he was
last
just
year.
picked in the first round last year, but the Dolphins are in fire sale mode, and they're trading everybody from that team of any value.
Right.
So
If the pick is 10, 100% worth it. If it's top 5, you're losing a little bit, but you're getting a player that you should want, that defense needs going
Yeah.
forward.
it's crazy because I think the Steelers are trying to win this year still. And I think that's part of what this deal is. I don't necessarily even think it's a future building move. I think they're trying to build up their defense this year to still make the playoffs.
When you look at the division now, maybe they're thinking we need a corner. OBJ over there. We got
Yeah?
Hollywood Brown now looking like a player, even though he's not even practicing, he's still looking like a baller.
Yeah.
It's probably just built for the division. Hoping that there isn't a better defensive back prospect coming out next year.
It's confusing. I mean, I can kind of see where they're at, but I just think it's way too risky for my tastes. I don't know. For a DB, I just don't think you can give up that high of a potential draft pick. Now, however, if it ends up that they are right and they do make the playoffs and their pick is in like the 20s or whatever, that deal looks amazing.
Yeah.
So it really just kind of depends on how the season goes. And if they do like Mason Rudolph and he's good and they play well, even if they're just around 500, still a pretty good deal. If you're giving up, a pick in the teens.
Well, they're 0-2 so far.
Exactly. So we don't know.
And they've got the juggernaut 49ers coming up
Did you
this
say
week.
that sarcastically? The 49ers are playing excellent football.
Yeah.
They look really, really sharp. And we talked about that on the preview pod too. Like last year, their record did not properly explain how good that team was. All of the analytics said the 49ers should have been way, way, way better. They just had dumb, awful luck. So the fact that they're looking great in their first 2 games is not surprising to me. I think that team's pretty good.
It'll be a test for
Yeah.
the Steelers for sure to see how their season ends up.
And I'd pick the Niners pretty comfortably in that matchup.
Yeah. Sunday afternoon in San Francisco for
Yeah.
that one. So
In other news, we also had Jalen Ramsey, corner from the Jaguars, requesting a trade after getting into a heated exchange on the sidelines this weekend. Michael,
Give
do you
him
have-
to me. I want him.
Yeah. I think a lot of teams do. He's an excellent corner. He's just a loud personality, but not to a toxic degree, I don't think. He's just kind of a goof, but
Yeah, he's just the on the field trash talker, off the
Yeah.
field trash talker.
yeah, on and off.
Yeah.
It seems like his teammates all like him, though. I don't think he's any kind of like locker room problem.
Yeah, even when he got in the argument with the coach, it looked like the players were on his side and
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, we just need to, calm down everybody here." But it
Have you-
doesn't look like he's going to re-sign there anyway. They didn't offer him big money like he wants.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is I think it really wasn't about the blow up on the sideline. I think this was coming no matter what. That just kind of expedited
Yeah.
the process. But I think he was pretty clearly out of Jacksonville this year, no matter what, because he wants big time money.
I'll give it to him personally.
Yeah,
he's
I
free to
don't-
walk after the year.
It's no 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
2
this year and one more year with his option.
The other people in his draft class, I think 4 people picked ahead of him have all gotten paid, or like 4 of the 5, something like that.
And then you got Bosa from LA. The Chargers hasn't been paid, but that is the Chargers.
Yeah, exactly. The Chargers are like that, as Melvin Gordon has found out.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew Jalen Ramsey had been in the league this long. If he's
It's just
a free agent in a couple years.
3
Well,
years.
that'll be his 5th year.
Yeah.
Next year.
It's 5 years in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
It's 4 and a 5th year team option
Gotcha.
for the first round picks.
Yeah.
I need a casual football fan bell that I can ding whenever I ask dumb
That's
questions
okay.
like
That's
that.
what you're here for.
That'd be, let's get you one of those.
That's productive. Not everybody's in the loop on everything.
Yeah,
So.
and so speaking of that too, so because you guys kind of brought it up, but I missed what happened. He got into some kind of argument on the sideline this week
Yeah,
with a
yeah,
coach.
so
What was that
He
about?
was smothering DeAndre Hopkins, best wide receiver in the NFL. He caught a ball on him, and Jalen said, "No catch. Throw the flag, coach. Throw that challenge flag." Coach was like, "Nah." They could look at the review, on the big screen, the broadcast. He did not catch that football. So he had some words for his coach walking off the sideline.
He felt like the coach didn't have his back
Yeah.
and didn't have the confidence in him.
When it went and sat down, it looked like the coach then went back to kind of discipline him in front of everybody, and everyone was like, "No, you can't be talking to him like that." But we don't really know what was said there on any side. We just know what we saw and can try and infer here.
Right.
On that note, replay and review, let's talk about the officiating.
Bad,
'Cause-
so bad.
Good Lord. I can talk about the Vikings game. I'll tell you that. There was a play in that game. I'm sure you probably saw it if you saw
Yeah.
the highlights. So Diggs scores a touchdown. Nobody is even arguing it. The Packers coaches, nobody's even calling for a review. Everyone's just like, okay, it's a touchdown, whatever. All scoring plays, Gerardo, I don't know, you know about this. Okay,
Right.
so all scoring plays go under review no matter what by the league. They decided to take a look at this and then find an offensive pass interference away from the ball. It's not even on Diggs, it's on Cook because he bumped into a guy and they called it a pick. And so they reverse and overturn the touchdown because they found an offensive pass interference call in the replay, which isn't a thing that happens and is also not even what the league said was the goal of review for pass interference. They wanted it to just strictly be like Rams Saints NFC Championship. Where it's
from what
those-
I understood
those
is
egregious
the review
calls.
should be to let them play a little bit
Yeah.
if you're reviewing the play. Because I don't want to throw it all the way back to AB. When the Raiders acquired him, I've watched all the highlights in the world. He pushes off a lot, and I love it because it's subtle, it's beautiful, but
All the best receivers do.
Yeah, if they're going to start calling this, then all of a sudden, it's going to look a little sketchy for these offenses.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So this is what everybody's complaint was when the league announced they were making pass interference challengeable, is that you can call it on every single play.
Yeah.
Like it's so subjective, but there is some contact on every pass in the NFL.
And it is purely subjective, like
is.
The Derek Carr interception, where they offense clearly thinks is defense is pass interference, but they call offensive, even though it's kind of ticky
and
tacky.
they're both going at it. And so what the league said originally was it's only for these egregious ones that are just everyone can see and everyone can agree
Yeah, where
on.
he tackles him before the ball is.
And so that's what was so upsetting to me, and I'm sure Vikings fans everywhere, and from the podcasts I've been listening to, just football fans in general, people who had no rooting interest were pretty upset about this because it's not what this is supposed to be for. And for them to go in and just look for a penalty, basically, it kind of sets a scary precedent because then even later on in that same game, the Packers had an interception where the DB was clearly grabbing the receiver's arm, pulling it down, and that's another play that's automatically reviewed, but they didn't find that one. So then all throughout the game, you can just see the inconsistencies. And then in other games too, same thing. Other games all around the league, you're seeing those little touch things that are called, and then later on, there's more aggressive stuff, doesn't get called.
Some roughing the passer
Yeah.
plays that decided a game for Chicago against the Broncos.
Yep, absolutely. And another one in that game, the end of that game, the officiating at the end of that game. So the guy is able to catch the ball, hit the ground, and a timeout get called all in 1 second or less than 1 second. Well, what happened there? Anytime a guy ever goes down and then calls a timeout, at least a couple seconds runs off because there's a process. Did you see this game, Gerardo?
No, I don't. That one doesn't sound familiar.
It was Bears Broncos, and what happened was the
I
Bears
saw
were driving.
all those highlights, but I don't remember that.
So it was the Bears are driving and trying to get to set up a field goal at the very end of the game. So the guy catches it, gives himself up, goes to the ground, and the clock just stops at 1 second.
Yeah.
Like they decide they're just going to leave that 1 second on there. When every other time that happens, a couple seconds run because
Right.
the guy hits the ground, somebody has to call the timeout, the referee has to acknowledge the timeout, blow the whistle, stop the clock.
I know that's how it usually is, but I am on the side of letting them have a referee right there. The head coach be like, "We're calling timeout." Soon as it goes down.
that's
But
what
that
they
should be
said
the
too.
standard going forward as opposed to what we've seen.
Yeah, it's never been that, and all of a sudden for
doesn't-
one game it
yeah.
is. It's just,
That's the thing is if it's going to be that way, that's fine, but it's not been applied consistently because they said that after the game too, that the coach had notified them as soon as they hit the ground, we're calling our timeout, we're using it. But that's not how that's usually ruled.
yeah. Does the coach get to do that?
Well, apparently now the precedent is set officially that yes, you can do that. It's just the whole thing is just ugly. It's an ugly look for the league that so many of the games this week were decided on officiating. The Saints game, we didn't even talk about that yet. So the Saints
fans, keep your
Yeah.
referee jerseys out.
the Saints know what it's like to get screwed by the refs, so this week was no different. And they got that defensive touchdown, but the ref blew the whistle too early, and so it's not reviewable. So they get the ball, but they don't get the touchdown. And I think that drastically altered the outcome of the game because that would have given them the 10-3 lead early on, and I think it really swung
Could
the
you imagine
momentum.
if the same officiating crew was from the championship game?
Yeah. I think the league knows better than that, just to not troll the Saints that hard. Oh, man. Nothing gets me more fired up than just bad officiating. And it happens every single year. And the more the league tries to like hone in on specific rules, the worse they make it. Like we spent years playing what is a catch. And I feel like we pretty much have that solved now, but now we don't know what roughing the passer is. We don't know what pass interference is. It's just one thing after another.
There were so many plays, roughing the passers and then no calls. Insane.
Yeah, and like in that Vikings-Packers game, they were flashing back to last year's matchup where the game in that one swung on a blown call on Clay Matthews when he landed on Kirk Cousins, and they ruled roughing the passer when it definitely wasn't. But that was just one of those rules they were pushing at the beginning of the year where if you land your body weight all the way on the quarterback, and then they later on in the year kind of stopped calling that. So just the flaky inconsistency it's aggravating.
Sounds like they're ruining the game with all of these rule changes.
It's just reactionary. So they see things like that happens in a big spot and gets bad publicity, like the thing that happened in the playoffs. So they just change the rule. And they shouldn't have changed the rule.
I think it's just lack of consistency because that rule for the pass interference, if it's that egregious, you have to fix it. Where
But-
he smashed.
But it's slippery slope, though, because
It
then
is.
why can you challenge pass interference, but you can't challenge holding? Like, where do you draw the line? Just because it happened in a prominent game is the reason why you can challenge pass interference. So now if there's a big blown holding call in a game, do we challenge holding the next year? Like, where do you stop? Either you let everything be reviewable or you can't review subjective penalties like that. I
But
think-
that pass interference was not subjective.
But penalties in general are. So things like pass interference are. You can say that one was especially egregious, but pass interference in general is not something you can definitively say black or white. It's up to the ref's discretion. And as we just discussed, is called differently on different days.
In
Whereas-
different crews. I mean, there's stats for it. There's
Which
different,
is-
different
exactly.
crews call different things.
Totally.
They do need a more strict guideline on what is what.
Yeah. And I think that's where I draw the line personally is review should be the things that are definitive. Like, does a ball cross the line? You can say yes or no. Things like penalties, I think you can't challenge them, or you can challenge all of them. I don't think you can pick and choose on penalties. You disagree?
Yeah, you can't allow that to happen again.
Right. So then you don't agree that you should just then open it up to all penalties?
No, I think there are subjective calls, and there are calls where he tackled the receiver before the
Hold
ball
on,
was there.
because if you're talking about, if you're taking the side that they open it up to all penalties,
I'm not. I'm saying it's one or the other.
yeah, I don't know. I think, okay, so there was the super obvious one in the Rams and Saints playoff game, but then you're talking about this one from the Packers-Vikings game from this week. If I'm the Packers or a Packers fan, I would I would want them. I would look at the replay and say, hey, wait a minute, that looked like offensive pass interference. They should call that.
Right.
So, and I'm saying, pass interference plays are now under review. You can challenge them, but I can't challenge that because it wasn't super obvious. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it like you said, it's a super slippery slope.
Yeah, it is a very slippery slope. And what my point was from the beginning was the league specifically said we have this in place for the egregious calls like that one. And on this one, the Packers weren't even calling for a review. The Packers weren't even complaining. They didn't even see the pass interference. Nobody did. They didn't see it until the league went in to review the scoring play and then pulled it out.
Man,
so that type of a play is now opening the door because if I'm a coach,
we know things are reviewed all the way up to HQ now.
Yeah.
Do we know who called for that to be PI? No,
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue. But what I'm saying is, so now, regardless of the Vikings or Packers, that's irrelevant because everyone in the league saw the play. So now if I'm a coach anywhere in the league and I see any kind of big play, I'm just throwing my challenge flag. Like, you've now set the precedent that something that minor can be overturned in replay. So if there's a big play, if a guy goes, for like a 60-yard bomb that's not a touchdown, I'm just throwing a challenge flag. I'm going to say, no, pass interference. You've set the precedent for what PI is.
I mean, you clearly got another crew because John Gruden did that. He didn't get it.
That's what I'm saying.
You got another crew.
Yeah, you're totally right. That's the problem, is that you should have set the precedent, but it's irrelevant because it just won't matter. It just won't matter the next time a ref makes another call. So that nobody knows where the line is on these.
I agree reffing's bad. I just don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We've already talked too much about the refs. They don't deserve that much time. Gerardo, we didn't get your input. You weren't here for the preview episodes. Who do you think, who are you liking as a Super Bowl pick this year? And the rule was for me and Michael, which we actually didn't even publish our Super Bowl picks, but you can't pick your own team.
We're not going to.
Yeah.
Oh,
you can't pick your own team, so you can't pick the Falcons.
But you are on the clock.
You're safe there because I wouldn't pick them anyway.
Yeah.
Man, I think that it comes down to the Patriots and Chiefs in the AFC. It just has to. And then in the NFC, the Rams, and I would have said the Saints, but now that's up in the air. So we were talking earlier about how good the Cowboys look. Maybe they take over. I don't know. You want me to pick a Super Bowl champ or just...
No,
just pick the matchup.
I was just seeing where you're at.
I would put it up to those four, to be honest. I don't know.
Now take out two of them.
Matchup, all right. Guaranteed to be incorrect. I'm gonna go Cowboys Patriots.
You are sleeping on the Ravens.
Oh, let's talk about the Ravens. I love it. Perfect segue. Lamar Jackson did it again this week.
He's good.
Dude, so good. Gerardo, did you hear that episode of our preview podcast?
I did. I heard them all.
Did you hear?
He's got. I don't want to talk about it.
Did you hear Lamar Jackson get compared to Terrell Pryor as a quarterback?
I would say last year
that.
was a comparable.
Not by his doing. He had handcuffs on.
Okay, but based on what we saw,
Sure. But like I said, he was a great passer in college. They're finally letting him throw, and he's doing it. And then this week, like we were discussing whether or not
he has
they'd
a
go
connection
back
with Hollywood Brown with no practice. It's insane that they're working this well together.
But yeah, like we were saying, we didn't know if they were going to go back to running the ball with Lamar or if he was just going to stay airing it out. He had 120 rushing yards this week on I think like 16 or 17 carries. So he is doing it all. He threw for like another almost 300 yards and rushed for 120. He's a beast, and I love it. And this week, he goes against Pat Mahomes. That is the game of the week.
That'll be quite a matchup.
I'm ready for that game.
My lasting memory of that guy is just watching him sit around all evening waiting to get picked. What was it, number 30 in the draft that year?
That was rough.
A lot of teams kicking themselves for that now.
Yeah.
Who you like in the Ravens-Chiefs game, Michael?
I want the Ravens to win.
You want them to win.
Yeah.
Say you were betting on the game.
Is there a spread?
I'll get that for you right now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gerardo.
I think the Chiefs are probably the favorite. I'm sure they are. The Chiefs are going to be everybody's pick. What's the
Chiefs are
spread?
6.5-point favorites.
I will
in
take
Kansas City, right?
I will
It's in
take
Kansas
those
City.
points.
Yeah, home team, typically with betting, the home team gets an automatic 3 points for home field advantage. So they're only viewing them as a few points better than the Ravens. That's going to be a fun game. Is that a morning game or a late game?
That one's 10 o'clock on Sunday.
Pacific time. Sounds good.
Pacific.
I'm down for that. That's going to be a fun game.
Yeah.
I'll take the Chiefs.
I think the Chiefs are I was going to say the best team in the NFL. I think the Patriots.
I
the
don't think
Patriots
so.
are just a tiny notch above them, but I love the Chiefs. So I probably picked them, but I'm just going to have fun watching that game. Speaking of the Patriots, any chance they go 16-0? That's been a popular topic on the hot take talk shows and stuff.
Let me see their schedule.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Well, I can tell you they play the AFC East, which is
16-0.
yeah, there's a lot of wins right off the bat there. The Jets are now on their third string quarterback. Yeah, Darnold's out with mono. Simeon snapped his ankle in half in that Monday night game, and he's out for the year. So Luke Falk, they've got a 21 point spread this week? 21 or 22? Patriots over the Jets.
23, I think.
Jesus. That's yeah.
All right.
Yeah, their toughest games are looking like
Well, they've
Texans and Cowboys. They play the Chiefs in December.
So they play the Texans, Chiefs, and Cowboys?
and the Eagles.
And they're not going
No,
16-0.
they're not.
Shut that down. Sure, they're going to be
Who do they
favored.
lose?
They're going to be
Who do they
favored.
lose to?
That's the thing. They're going to be favored in all of those games, but they could lose any of them. I don't know which one they're going to lose to, but I just don't see any way they beat all four of those
That's
teams.
a gauntlet, man. So there's a 4-game stretch where they go Eagles, Cowboys, Texans, Chiefs
Yeah.
in 4 straight weeks.
Ravens right before then.
Oh my, really? I'm the
Yeah,
only
you're right.
one- I'm the only one not looking at the schedule right now. That is a brutal schedule.
15-1 to the Ravens.
15-1, even like 13-3.
15-1 to the Ravens.
God, even if they go like 13-3 with that schedule, that would be very impressive. The Bills are good. Am I crazy? I think the Bills are good.
They're playing them twice, of course.
I mean, they're not going to beat the Patriots
No.
probably, but I'm just saying like their division's not as bad as we're making it out to be.
They have the tanking Dolphins. They get
Okay, that's a whole other conversation.
Fine, so they get to beat them one other game.
Yeah,
It's, I don't know. Yeah, 14-2 for the Patriots.
yeah. I mean, they're definitely.
to the Ravens and who else?
Michael really likes pinning people down on these.
Yeah, the Ravens, I don't know, man. I'm going to say they lose to the Chiefs and they lose
Texans.
to either the Cowboys or the Eagles.
Texans. Deshaun Watson's going to get them.
The Chiefs go into Foxborough and beat Tom Brady.
Yes.
Anyway,
That game is probably for home field if it's not Baltimore.
yeah.
Man, you are all in on Baltimore.
He's got to make it up to Lamar.
Yeah,
after
my
he
bad,
dissed
man.
him.
My bad. That one's on me.
Michael's going to show up next week wearing the Lamar jersey.
Can I get
I've
that
always
knockoff?
loved him. I'm pretty confident the Patriots are going to be the 1 seed, but after hearing that schedule, I could see them slipping. First round bye, they're going to get that.
Yeah,
I just think
absolutely.
the AFC is
Well,
weaker than we expected.
I mean, the first round buys are probably favored to the Chiefs and the Patriots.
Yeah, definitely. I think Baltimore's good. I really, really like Baltimore, but I don't think they're in that first round bye contention. I don't think they're going to be top 2 seed in the AFC. They're going to have some days where Lamar's not looking like Mike Vick with better accuracy.
Yeah.
There's going to be days. There's just going to be some off games.
There'll be some growing pains there.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I think they're looking like an easy division winner now, though, because I haven't been impressed with the Browns either week, and now with the Steelers losing their quarterback. Anybody have any hot take thoughts on the Browns? I
thought it's probably next year.
Browns have a
You're smiling.
nice test coming up this week.
Oh,
because they're
you-
playing the Rams.
You really want to talk about this game? Maybe it'll be a good game. So coming into the season, we would have thought that, but I just think everybody's been so unimpressed with the Browns through 2 games.
I agree, man, but they've got weapons, and it's
They
safe to
do.
say they've underperformed in those 2 games, even though they weren't really the super great teams. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone was crowning them champions at the beginning of the year, and they've got a really nice test coming up.
And to be fair to the Browns, they only lost 1 game. Where I'm holding them to that Monday night game that was awful. because they didn't blow out the Jets. They looked just as bad as the Jets. They just got the big plays that the Jets didn't get. They looked bad, and Baker looked bad in the Monday night game. He was missing throws left and right.
I don't think they're going to do well against the Rams just because they have O-line problems. Against Aaron Donald, it's not a recipe for success. I don't think this is how we determine their season outlook, because this is a matchup for the Rams to win.
Yeah, I don't think this determines their season, but I just think it puts them up against an actual quality team, and let's see if they play up to the good teams. Because who'd they play in week 1?
The Titans.
They played the Titans.
They got blown out by the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think the Titans, nobody saw them as anything special coming in.
9-7.
Yeah.
9-7
every year.
And they were always going to beat the Jets in week 2, so now they get to face an actual tough team. Let's see what they do.
After watching that game, I don't know if they were always going to beat the Jets. If Sam Darnold's in there, the Jets might win that game because they both looked bad. So I think if Darnold's there, the Jets definitely could have beaten them.
Besides Odell's couple big splash plays, because they got 3 points off that phenomenal catch in the red zone.
Yeah, the game was close, and then you could see the Jets just kind of looked demoralized. So I don't know. I think the Browns won, so that's good, but they didn't impress anybody. So if they beat the Rams, that's a big start.
If they beat the Rams, I'll be talking about Baker Mayfield like he's Lamar Jackson.
Oh, God. The Rams haven't been that dominant, though. They haven't looked anything like last year's Rams.
But I just think the matchup is for the Rams to win.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm very comfortable in saying the Rams are going to win that game, but they haven't looked quite the same as last year, but they don't need to.
No, but Aaron Donald is the second best defensive player in the NFL.
Well, we'll save that for another day.
Well, when Cleveland wins this Sunday, I will schedule myself back on for next week's podcast for my vindication tour.
Are you picking the Browns?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we're going Browns.
I like that confident pause.
And that's the Sunday night game, by the way, so that'll be fun.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. That's good. That'll be a better game than, a lot of the primetime games we've been getting.
Sunday night game.
Sunday night game was good.
That first great. Monday night was really good with the
we
Saints,
went 1
Texans.
for 2 in those Monday night games.
Excuse me?
Yeah. You want to talk about the Raiders?
There's a lot of hate.
Let's talk about the Raiders. What are they going to do this week, Michael? Tell us about week 3 for the Raiders.
They're going to stomp all over those Vikings. That's what they're going to do.
Okay. How do you think they're going to go about doing that?
Josh Jacobs is going to go for 1,000 yards on the ground.
Yeah. Well, okay. In all honesty, joking aside, the Vikings' run D did look susceptible this week. Like, their pass D on Aaron Rodgers was way better. Their run D, they were getting gashed.
Yeah.
Like, Aaron Jones was getting some chunk plays that the Vikings don't normally give up. So I think that may be the spot to beat them right now because their pass rush is on fire. Everson Griffin was just living in the backfield, but their run D was a little shaky. So if I'm the Raiders, I'm watching that tape and I'm saying, okay, we're pounding Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs did cramp up in the game against KC.
Yeah.
Gruden said he also has a groin. We'll see what happens during the week. But I think if they can, they should lean on that running back because he looks like the real deal.
Man, he looks great. But speaking of real deal running backs, Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That dude ended up with 190 yards this week in a loss, which doesn't often happen. If you're running the ball that well, you typically win in the NFL, but...
It took him a little while to get going, right?
No? Not really, no. He was...
I just saw that when he broke open.
Yeah, he had that 75-yarder, but even aside from that, still had another 120 yards or 115, something like that. That guy looks like MVP caliber. He looks that level, but he's not going to get the MVP. Don't get me wrong. He's not doing that because he's stuck with Kirk Cousins. I could rant for an hour about how bad Kirk Cousins was.
One more year after this year, right?
Yeah, we still have one more year. It's ugly, dude. I was listening to one of the Vikings local radio stations. They have a podcast where they just let people call in and vent. It's ugly. Vikings fans are finished with Kirk Cousins. Everybody was trying to make excuses for him last year, but he did the same stuff then. He just chokes in every big game. Anytime there's a, C-tier opponent, he'll just light him up, pad his stats, and look good when there's no pressure.
What's your take? Should they move on right now?
They can't. There's no way to move on from him right now. His contract's fully guaranteed, so even if you cut him, you're not saving any money, and then you can't afford to bring on another quarterback. So there's just nothing they can do. They're stuck with him. But yeah, I am totally on that he's awful. And he is the sole reason that the Vikings lost the game on Sunday. Because the defense gave up 21 points in the first 15, 16 minutes of the game. I think it was 1 minute into the second quarter. And then nothing the entire rest of the game. Didn't give up another point. And one of those touchdowns they gave up was because Kirk Cousins fumbled twice in a row. He's just a train wreck. He's a mess in big games. And it's been before for the Vikings too. That was always the rap on him in Washington. And it was funny to see the distinction because people outside of Washington would be like, yeah, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, great numbers,
big
great
games,
stats.
or is it good defenses?
No, it's not. It's not even a defensive related thing, at least in my opinion. It seems like he just gets very mentally rattled. You can see it on his face. He looks nervous and tense, and he makes unforced errors. Like in this Packers game, it wasn't a defensive thing. It's first and goal from, I believe it was the 7-yard line, and he drops back and backpedals and then just lofts it up into the end zone up for grabs. On first down, there's no reason to rush it. There's no reason to force anything. Your running game is crushing, and he just floats it up into the end zone to get intercepted and throw the game away. And he does that all the time. That's the rap on him. He just makes baffling decisions. So it's not anything that was, a defensive thing.
Games don't get much bigger than Raiders Vikings. So
well, yeah, so not trying to diminish the Raiders, but I think all Vikings fans would tell you this is the type of game Cousins will be fine. He'll be great. He'll play well. And then those big division games, like when we play the Bears or the Packers or
he's going to throw 3 picks to Jalen Ramsey Sunday. Be ready.
Jalen Ramsey. So you're predicting he gets traded and starts this week.
Well, if he's traded, he is starting.
Well, the Steelers said Minkah Fitzpatrick is playing Sunday.
Yeah, if one happens, the other is happening. But that's all wishful thinking.
Yeah, that's another step away. But yeah, so the Cousins thing, it drives me insane. I get fired up talking about it, but it feels like kind of just like a dark cloud over the team because even if we do well and potentially were to get into the playoffs, every Vikings fan is just going to be nervous as hell because he just folds in every big game and every big moment. So I don't know. It's tough too because the team's in a pretty small window of time with all their good players that you're now giving this year and next year to a quarterback you have no faith in.
Maybe they get lucky and a quarterback like Lamar Jackson falls in their laps.
Well, that's next year. That's not this year. So it's just one more year on that defense. Everson Griffin's a free agent at the end of this year, so he might not be back. The team's running out of money with an $84 million guaranteed quarterback.
How much money is it next year, do you know?
28. I believe it's 28 all 3 years. I know that's the average, but I don't know how it's spread throughout each year. I think it was even across.
So naturally, Kirk Cousins is going to reel off like an 8-game winning streak coming up.
And that would be totally on brand for Kirk Cousins. That's what I'm saying.
Starting next week.
His numbers every year are good. So every year at the end of the year, you look at his season-long numbers and you talk yourself into him.
Right.
That's just what he is. He'll pile up the stats.
You think the Vikings are done with him? I know you said the fans are done with him. You think the Vikings?
I can tell you the quotes from Zimmer this week sounded very, very frustrating. And he said, we just need to teach Kirk what we want him to do in these situations, which is a crazy thing to say about a 31-year-old quarterback who's been in the league for 8 years. And he said, we still need to teach him what to do in these situations. It's crazy.
Does he make that call?
Who?
Your coach.
Zimmer?
Yeah.
What call? To bench him?
No, not bench him, but
Or
when
like
that contract's
play call.
up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so that's the thing. I mean, if you want to get doom and gloom, like some of the Vikings fans are, Zimmer might not be there next year to even make that call. If this season implodes, which I don't think it will, I want to stop right there and say,
He'll get a head coaching job immediately.
I don't think so.
They should not. They should not.
So that's the thing is him and Spielman, because Rick Spielman, the GM, one of the most respected GMs in the league, because he makes great draft picks, great moves all around.
Picked a bad quarterback, it's fine.
He made a bad move on this Cousins deal, though, and it may cost him his job. I think they're going to be fine. But he definitely limits their potential upside when he's still, at 31 years old, makes plays like this.
So we should move on here pretty soon because we've been talking about that for a while. But just to recap, so if they somehow reel off like an 8-game winning streak, and then they finish with like an 11-5, 12-4 record, they win the division, they go in the playoffs, he straight up messes up on one game and they lose.
Yeah.
Do you think your GM and coach are still on the hot seat?
No. No,
Okay.
if they're 10-6, 11-5 in the playoffs, and Kirk just blows a playoff game, there's no way you're firing the coach and GM in that situation.
But the fans still will
they'll
not trust Cousins in that playoff game,
Yeah.
and they'll still be pissed off.
Right. The blame will be on Cousins. Though the problem is if you invest in Cousins and he's worse than even expected
Right.
and completely goes in the tank, and your team is 7-9, 6-10, then they're cleaning house. I think the 10-6 is more likely because the team, even in this game, after that first quarter, looked awesome. The defense locked down the Packers. So I think the defense and running game are top notch, and they'll carry the team. Cousins is going to have more games where he doesn't have to win it than ones where he does, I think. Anyway, enough about the Vikings. I didn't mean to turn this into a Vikings podcast. But to be fair, that is a popular topic around the league outside of Vikings too. Anything else we need to cover from week 2, Michael?
How about Eli Manning losing his job?
Oh, that's right. We didn't even talk about that. There's not a whole lot to say there, but
It doesn't matter.
yeah, you don't think it matters. Daniel Jones was phenomenal in the preseason. Like I've said, preseason's kind of irrelevant, but that's the only sample size we have to go on, and he looked really, really, really good. So it's exciting for the Giants. I think those fans have wanted to move on from Eli for a long time, and now they get to. They get to see another one in there.
Has he gotten into either of the first 2 games at all?
I don't think so. I think he came
Yeah,
in. He came in
played
the
a little
last
bit.
game.
Did he?
Yeah,
I was
very
thinking
limited.
first game.
Yeah, but yeah, it's exciting.
Nothing
'Cause-
special to report from when he was in. He
No,
didn't do anything
he
great.
didn't play enough to really
Looks
have
just
any
like
kind of-
Eli Manning.
He does visibly look just like Eli Manning. It's kind of creepy. So I don't know. We're excited about Daniel. I'm excited. I'm not going to say we. Michael has zero interest in that. I'm excited to see Daniel Jones. After all the hate he got on draft day from his own fans, it's going to be fun. All right, we're going to do something a little different this week. We thought it would be fun to make some picks against the spread. So we're each going to pick 4 games. Me and Michael are going to do this all year. Gerardo is going to play along this week. We'll see if he wants to keep doing it as we go. So I'll go first. Here's my 4 picks. I'm taking the Jets plus 22.5 is what I have here on the Yahoo Sports app. I don't like the Jets. I definitely don't think they're going to win the game, but I think 22.5 is an insane spread for any NFL game. So I'm taking the Jets. I felt that way last week about the Dolphins too, but I think the Dolphins are tanking, the Jets are not. So I'm confident. Jets plus 22.5. I'm also taking Daniel Jones and the Giants plus 6.5. 6.5. It's against the Bucks. So I don't think the Bucks are that good anyway. I'm also taking the Texans plus 3 against the Chargers in Los Angeles. I like that one. Chargers haven't been that great so far, and I love me some Deshaun Watson. So I'm taking the Texans plus 3. And then last, I'm going to take the Rams plus or minus 3 against the Browns. Michael?
So I have a couple of upsets to start me off here.
Let's do it.
The Raiders are upsetting the Vikings. 8 points. I got to take it.
I agree. It's a good spread for the Raiders, but they can cover. They don't have to win.
Well, it's going to be upset. And then as we were talking a little earlier, I think the Ravens upset the Chiefs.
Okay.
So I'm going to take that spread as well. They got the Chiefs favored by about 6.5.
Okay.
So I'm going to take that. However, unlike you, I think the Patriots are going to cover. I think they're going to
All right.
put on a show. They're just going to play catch. And Tom Brady and AB, if he's playing this weekend, are going to play catch and figure some stuff out.
I like it. We're on opposite sides of that
Yeah.
one.
And then I got the Rams covering their 3 points against the Browns.
So we were in sync on that one.
Yeah.
Gerardo?
All right.
And first of all, are you clear on how the betting works?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So I'm going to take the Texans plus 3 over the Chargers. I will take the Cowboys to cover 21.5 over the Dolphins.
Ooh.
I will take the Packers to cover 7.5 over the Broncos. And I've got the Falcons plus 2 over the Colts.
was a funny choice of teams that you're betting on, but I like it. I like it.
Hey, gotta go something different.
Yep. All right. So we'll check in on that next week and see how we each did. And we'll just keep a running tally throughout the year, keep some stand-ins going. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this week. Gerardo, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, this was fun, and I didn't feel as uninformed as I thought I would.
Yeah, I think you did great. I think you watch more than you're giving yourself credit for.
At least follow it. I don't get a lot of chance to watch because I'm busy Sunday mornings, which it just sucks because I would love to, but because I really enjoy the sport. But yeah, I try to follow as much as I can. So, hey, maybe if I did well enough, you guys will have me back on.
I'm down. I think it's just fun having more voices in the room. Michael, thanks for joining us as always.
Yeah, man, anytime.
We're gonna need to maybe set something up, maybe a little wager of some sort for this Vikings Raiders game.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
I don't know. We'll sort that out. I'll post something on the Twitter. Let any of the listeners know what we've got on this one. All right, we'll cover that next week. We'll see you guys then.
Can't wait.